out of his mind due to illegal drugs, right? And he had fentanyl found in his system when he passed, and that was the cause of passing. It wasn't because he was held down. I have to be very careful about how I word this on live because TikTok does obviously give you violations. I think for me, the whole situation, I never want to see anybody's life get taken. So that, let me just put that out there. I think the whole situation's horrific. I just think that it's even more horrific though, that we literally glorified this man who was a fucking criminal. Like actually a fucking criminal, has offed people, like literally offed people. The man was a drug dealer who was addicted to drugs, was an awful human. And we made him out to be like put on this fucking pedestal. And I think that's awful. Now I do agree that Black Lives Matter. I do agree with that. I just don't think that Black Lives matter more than white lives or brown lives or any other life. I think everybody's life matters equally. But I will say I do acknowledge the history that African Americans have had in this country. I will say that as well. So I think that there's been plenty of time for people to be able to get out of their situation and that choices are made. And you can look at, very successful individuals in the country. Look, fucking Obama. Obama's a black man and he was president. And you're telling me that he doesn't have rights? Like, get out of here. But there are people who also are living in communities where it's very difficult to get out of their situation. Is it impossible? No, it's just difficult because of the circumstances they have grown, that they were born into because of generational trauma. So it's a real thing. But I don't necessarily think that 2020 should have like we could have at least picked a completely different person to put up on a fucking pedestal. Like, let's be honest. Not fucking George Floyd of all people. Okay, earlier said nothing crazy happened under Trump. Didn't COVID happen under Trump? Of course, but he didn't. He wanted to open up the borders he wanted to open everything up after 2 weeks, but he essentially was not allowed. And everybody on the left side kept saying, no, you need to keep it closed. You need to keep it closed. And all these companies went against him and said, no, we're going to keep everything closed. Trump was very vocal about wanting to open up the country. Do you guys not remember this time? Everybody was staying at home. Everybody was stuck at home watching his fucking speeches. Like, are you just forgetting all of this? Jake, you're gone. Sorry, you're leaving inappropriate comments. Somebody says he has rights, but mine are more important. Do you think America is a Christian country? No, technically we don't have any national religion here, but I would say the mass majority of Americans fall somewhere in the Christian category. Sure, I guess. All right, Richard, you done, bro? Who would win in a fight, Prime Obama or Prime Trump? In a fight or in a debate? What's up, Ranger? Yes, we love that. Oh, Juice, you're the best. Thank you so much. Well, yes, of course, it's in God we trust, although nobody really says in God we trust anymore. It's in there because obviously our forefathers, God, I really do something Biden. Our founding fathers, obviously were all very religious at the time. So they came to America not because they didn't believe in God, right? They didn't want to be stuck with one religion. And they wanted to have freedom to express whatever, to really to research and believe in whatever religion they wanted to believe in. It wasn't because we were a godless society. That wasn't the case. Everybody feared God back then. Everybody feared God most people feared God up until like the 60s or 70s, like probably like the 60s. In the 70s, a lot of that went to shit. And I think the minute that they took God out of the equation, and again, I'm not a religious person, I do believe in a higher power, but I think as soon as you took God out of the equation, people don't have something to fear. And when people don't have things to fear, people are going to act crazy. And that's what they do. That's why crime has also gone through the fucking roof. Anyway, back to abortion. My biggest issue is giving it back to the states. Why? You want to force people to do something that they're not for. I live in Texas, right? And I'm super pro-abortion. But if I'm very pro-abortion. But if an abortion was an issue for me, I wouldn't live in Texas, because the people of Texas voted to not have abortion be legal, because it's the rights of that state. Those people are the people of Texas are voting. And that's what they're voting for, because they're the ones who live in that state, and that's what they want to be law in their state. So why do you, somebody who's probably living up in fucking Minnesota, get the right to say what's going to happen in Texas? You don't. So if you want to have access to abortions, then go move to a state where you can access abortions, and then you can vote for whatever that is that you want. Just don't move to a state where you can't get a fucking abortion. Or any law. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate you. I just don't like you don't want states to have rights. That's wild. People in Texas are Texans first. I'm actually from Philadelphia. I am Philly first. I am an Eagles fan. I just happen to live in Texas. Are you a libertarian? Sure. I guess you could say that. I guess you could say I'm a libertarian, but I will be voting for Trump. I am solidly pro-choice, but I accept that individual states make abortion legal or not. Yeah, see, one of my really good friends is very, very, very pro-life, but hers is more from like a religious standpoint. And if I could live in an ideal world, in an ideal society where people did fear God, where God was part of every equation, where families did not get broken apart as easily, right? What's our divorce rate nowadays? Like 65%? Something ridiculous like that. If we had most families staying together and most adults were good people, like most men were good people, most women were good people, and most people were focused on building a family, not all this other bullshit, then I would say, yeah, I am pro-life. But there are exceptions to that, right? I don't think that we should ever focus on a woman not having an abortion when she is in need of one medically. I see the point when it comes to like the graping situation. Now that only accounts for like 1% to 2% of all abortions, statistically speaking. So, but I do understand that from a trauma standpoint. I do think that more people should give up children for adoption, but at the same time, those children are sitting in foster care. So I also think that it's up to individuals who are preaching pro-life to do their due diligence and to first and foremost go for like assist those children who are in foster care, because the foster care system is completely jacked up. And until those issues are fixed, I cannot sit back and say that I'm pro-life. I can't. I am pro-abortion, but again, I live in Texas, so I'm not going to vote. I just think that there are much bigger fish to fry in our country right now, to be quite frank. Foster care is much better than not having a chance at life. Completely disagree. Completely fucking disagree. There are too many people who are becoming foster parents who should not become foster parents and are only doing it for the paycheck. Entirely. I think there are really good foster parents out there, but I think the complete foster care system is a complete joke. Children are put into too many traumatic situations. Moving states to have an abortion is inconvenient for too many people. Okay, Craig, then people can keep their legs closed. If you know that reproduction is an outcome, it is a viable outcome for having intercourse, then, and if you don't want to have the ability to reproduce, then don't have intercourse. If you cannot move states, if you're saying, oh, I can't afford to move states to a state that, that allows abortions, then don't have intercourse. You keep your motherfucking legs closed. Or I guess technically men can't. Well, it's not really keeping legs closed for men, but like shit doesn't just go up there without cause. Like you do that. That's an act that you're thinking. It's a choice. Just don't fucking do it. Jesus Lord. Somebody said, Lucas, get out of here. Y'all are wild. Do you have any exceptions to abortions? What do you mean? Oh, I'm sorry. So are you asking like what? I'm pro-abortion. I'm for it. I think that there should be caps to it. I don't think that people should be using it as birth control. I think it's used as birth control way too many times. But yeah, I think that I don't agree with abortion past I would have to learn like the whole gestational period. I'll be really honest. I was not the best when it came into anatomy and all of that in school. Shocker. But I would say, I mean, most women don't even find out that they're pregnant until they're like 6 to 8 weeks along. And to be able to get your OB appointment, once you find out that you're pregnant, typically takes another like 3 to 4 weeks, which is a complete fucking joke in America, to be quite frank. I think that our healthcare system, in order to see a specialist, is much better than most other countries, frankly, but still 3-4 weeks after that brings you like 12 weeks. I think that it maybe like 16, 18 weeks, 20 weeks. I really don't know enough about that. I would have to look more into it to be able to give you a definitive answer, but I think that there should be terms on it, like limits on it. But again, still exceptions, right? Because if it's between a mother's life and she's dying because of something that's happening with her pregnancy, and that means having an abortion around like 25 weeks, and yeah, I think that she should be given an exception because she is a living, breathing being who's existed in this world. But at the same time, I don't agree with abortions up until birth. Like, that's wild. But again, I'm not a lawmaker. That's why I'm pro-choice. I have 26 messages. I'm so sorry. It was in Immortal Cardinal Sin. Are you talking about... Okay, Steve, sure, you can say pro-murder or whatever. Awesome. Doesn't hurt my feelings. Your argument is solely based on people being irresponsible. What about a family that needs one? A family that needs an abortion? For what reasons? Again, what reason is there to need one for a family? Womb Raider literally says, before speaking on things, you should learn much more about it as you can. You guys, okay, here's the fucking problem with TikTok is everybody wants you to be an expert in everything, and you cannot be an expert in everything. You can be an expert in a very small select like group of things, right? You can focus on 1, 2, maybe 3 things can you be an expert in. You cannot be an expert in everything. So regardless, when somebody asks me about abortion, I give my opinion on it. I even say I'm not an expert, but you want me to be an expert on it. And then the next topic we talk about obesity, and then you're saying, oh, I shouldn't speak on it unless I'm an expert in it, but you asked my opinion, so I shared it. So now I have to be an expert in these 2 situations, which are completely separate from one another. And then you want me to be an expert in politics, right? And I tell you, I'm not an expert in any of this. I'm just sharing my opinion on it. I'm much more informed and knowledgeable about obesity than all the other ones, but I'm not an expert in any of them. Like, you ask my opinion, so I share it. But then when you get to all these things, right, I keep sharing my opinions that you're asking me to provide, and then you're demanding that I'm a fucking expert in it. But how can I be an expert in everything that you're asking my opinion on? When I'm telling you that I'm not an expert on it, and then you're asking me to share my opinion on it, but then saying I shouldn't speak on it. But you asked my opinion on it. You guys are fucking, like, this is what I don't get about TikTok. Is you ask for an opinion, then you just get pissed about it. Fucking stupid. Sorry, I'm far behind.